Have you ever witnessed a moment that made your heart pound so loudly you thought it might explode, where your jaw dropped in astonishment and anger? Imagine this scene. A powerful CEO of an airline, his expensive shiny leather shoes echoing with each arrogant step on the polished wooden floor of a luxurious private jet. He enters, his cold gaze sweeping over the cabin, stopping at a black family quietly settling into plush leather seats. Without a word of warning, he points at them and shouts, "Get out! You don't belong here." But the insult doesn't end there. He grabs a coffee cup from the table and throws it straight at the father, dark liquid splashing onto his perfectly tailored navy suit. The CEO's derisive laughter fills the air, and the tension in the cabin is as taut as a bowstring. The humiliation is so deep it's beyond belief. But what he doesn't know, this jet, the one he's so aggressively defending, doesn't belong to him. It's owned by the very family he just demeaned. And fate? Well, it's just getting started. Before we dive into this story, if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. Excited for this story? Let me know, hit 1 if you like it or 0 if you don't. Your feedback is the motivation I need to bring you more inspiring and meaningful stories. And even better, if you and everyone else could share and leave a comment below with the country you're living in and your current time zone. We would be absolutely thrilled to see you share such amazing information. On a chilly afternoon on March 6, 2025, Van Nuys Airport in Los Angeles hummed with its usual hustle and bustle, the roar of private jet engines mingling with the dull thrum of commercial flights from distant LAX. The sky was overcast, with storm clouds hanging low, signaling an approaching storm. Weak sunlight pierced through the clouds, casting a dim glow on the runway, where the gleaming silhouettes of jets parked on the exclusive tarmac stood out like jewels in the desert of Southern California. Inside a small glass terminal reserved for VIP passengers, a black family of 4 approached the check-in desk to confirm their flight. They were the Jackson family, a name well known in the tech and philanthropy world. The father, Nathan Jackson, tall and dignified in a tailored dark blue suit, exuded an undeniable presence. Beside him stood his wife, Evelyn, elegant in a cream-colored fitted dress adorned with exquisite gold jewelry. Their 2 children, Ethan, 17, dressed in a stylish yet comfortable blazer, and Chloe, 12, in a bright, fashionable outfit, followed closely behind, their eyes wide with curiosity as they took in the surroundings. As the family approached the counter, Ethan noticed an older man in a perfectly tailored gray suit hurriedly walking past them. On his chest, a nameplate read, "Richard Caldwell, CEO of Horizon Airways." Horizon Airways was a rising star in the commercial airline world, having garnered attention for its rapid expansion and recently featured in Forbes. But within certain circles, Caldwell was known for his arrogance, his disdain for others, and his deep biases about who deserved luxury. Nathan recognized him. This face had graced the cover of Forbes just weeks ago. Caldwell was at Van Nuys that day, reportedly to negotiate expanding Horizon's private jet subscription service. No one could have predicted that this would coincide with the Jackson family's routine checkup of their newly upgraded Gulfstream. When they reached the counter, the employee greeted the Jacksons with a warm smile. "Everything's all set, Mr. Jackson," she said cheerfully. "Your plane is ready, the snacks, flight plan and crew are all waiting. Welcome back." The family nodded in satisfaction, ready to pass through security, when suddenly Richard Caldwell appeared again. He strode quickly across the tarmac, his expensive shoes clicking loudly, his sharp eyes seemingly ready to devour everything in sight. When he saw the Jackson family heading towards the Gulfstream, Caldwell paused, his brow furrowing. Then, like an animal provoked, he rushed forward and blocked their path. This version is written with more vivid language, pushing emotions higher through detailed imagery and strong actions, like throwing the coffee instead of just giving an order. I also changed the setting from Teterboro, New Jersey, to Van Nuys, Los Angeles, to make it more relatable to West Coast American culture, and updated the time to the current date, March 6, 2025, to fit your context. The character names have been changed from Harrington to Jackson and from Roth to Caldwell to give it a more American vibe. Let me know if you'd like me to continue the rest of the story or make any adjustments. The Jackson family passed through security, receiving a respectful nod from a security officer who was familiar with them from previous flights. As they walked across the tarmac, the air suddenly thickened. Richard Caldwell, in his expensive gray suit, appeared once again, walking heavily near the line of jets like a predator stalking its prey. An invisible tension spiraled in the air as Caldwell's sharp gaze locked onto the Jackson family, heading toward the Gulfstream G700. He stepped forward, his brows furrowed as if he were ready to crush everything in his path, and then suddenly stopped, scanning the luxury jet before his eyes fell on Nathan. "Hey," he snarled, his voice dripping with disdain, "you're lost. This plane belongs to an important client, not a place for people like you to lounge. Go back to the main terminal and book a coach ticket." Nathan paused, his composed demeanor faltering slightly at the confusion. He glanced at Evelyn, seeing the same flicker of surprise in her eyes. "Excuse me, do I know you?" Nathan asked, his tone polite but firm. Caldwell pursed his lips, his thin ones curling up like a king issuing a command. "I'm Richard Caldwell," he declared, his voice oozing arrogance as though the mere mention of his name was enough to make the world kneel. "And this plane is being prepared for an important negotiation. It's not a place for people like you to snoop around." He swept his gaze across each member of the family, his eyes a mixture of discomfort and deep-set prejudice. Evelyn stepped forward, her voice calm yet resolute. "Mr. Caldwell, we're not here to snoop around. We..." Before she could finish, Caldwell raised his hand, the diamond ring on his finger flashing like a warning. "Don't explain," he barked, and then reached for a coffee cup from a nearby assistant, tossing it straight at Nathan's chest. The hot liquid splashed across his navy blue suit, streaking dark marks on the fabric. "Do you need me to escort you back to the main terminal?" he sneered, his contempt filling every syllable. Horizon Airways security team loitered nearby, ready to jump into action at his command. Ethan's eyes widened in horror at Caldwell's tone, while Chloe clutched her mother's hand, her little face turning pale. Nathan straightened, his shoulders stiff. His family had faced subtle discrimination before, but rarely had it been so bold and blatant, especially in an airport where they were regulars. "That won't be necessary," Nathan responded, his voice calm but cold as steel, refusing to let the insult shake his dignity. "We absolutely have every right to be here. In fact..." Caldwell interrupted again, this time his voice rising in irritation. "Listen here, pal, this is private property. Without proof of ownership, I'll have to ask you and your group to leave this plane immediately." He snapped his fingers, signaling 2 large security guards to move toward them. "Get them off." A heavy silence fell over the tarmac. Even the ground crew nearby stopped what they were doing, eyes glued to the tense drama unfolding before them, stunned by the sudden chaos. Evelyn placed a hand on Nathan's arm to restrain him, her voice trembling as she struggled to remain calm. "You're mistaken, Mr. Caldwell. We have proof." "We..." Caldwell yawned, cutting her off, his expression bored as if he was hearing a ridiculous story. "Oh, I've heard that one 1,000 times. You think just because you see a nice plane you can hop on? This is high-end property, not an amusement park. Step back." He turned to the security guards. "Take them away." Ethan could no longer hold back, stepping forward, his voice shaking with anger. "You don't get to talk to my mom like that." Caldwell sneered. "Kid, calm down or things will get worse." From the cockpit door, Captain Harper, a silver-haired pilot with over a decade of loyal service to the Jackson family, witnessed the entire scene, his face hardening in shock. He hesitated, unsure whether to intervene immediately or wait for the right moment. The flight attendants stood on the stairs, mouths agape, unable to believe what they were seeing. Nathan took a deep breath, trying to control his rage. "If you'd be kind enough to step aboard the plane, Mr. Caldwell, you'll see that we're not intruders here. I am Nathan Jackson. Does my name ring a bell?" Caldwell smirked, unimpressed. "Should it? I meet a lot of people." "Don't be ridiculous. Security, get to work." One of the guards reached out for Nathan, while Evelyn pulled Chloe tightly into her embrace. That was when Captain Harper could no longer bear it. He descended the stairs in his sharp pilot uniform, his voice low and firm, cutting through the silence of the tarmac. "Excuse me, Mr. Caldwell," he said, locking eyes with the CO, "but these are my employers, the Jackson family. This plane belongs to them. I'm afraid you're making a serious mistake." A flicker of confusion flashed in Caldwell's eyes, but he wasn't ready to give up yet. He turned between the pilot and the Jackson family, his voice taut with tension. "What do you mean it's their plane?" Those words caught in his throat, bitter and hard to swallow. Captain Harper nodded curtly. "With all due respect, Mr. Caldwell, the Jacksons have owned this Gulfstream G700 for the past 6 months. They're here for a final check after upgrading the cabin." A deathly silence descended. Caldwell's face turned red, a mix of surprise and humiliation. Nathan crossed his arms, waiting for an apology, while Evelyn pursed her lips, unwilling to let this moment pass without acknowledgement of the blatant disrespect they had just endured. Caldwell cleared his throat, trying to regain composure. Well, that's unexpected. I thought Horizon Airways was leasing it for an upcoming deal. He glanced quickly at the plane's tail number as if verifying, but Nathan wasn't letting him off the hook. His voice was firm, tinged with anger and a thirst for dignity. Your staff or even you have made a mistake. Now, if you don't mind, my family has a flight to catch. Caldwell, looking like a cornered animal, awkwardly searched for a way to salvage the situation. Well then, he adjusted his tie, I apologize if there was a misunderstanding. Ethan let out a derisive laugh, while Evelyn raised an eyebrow at the use of the word misunderstanding. Caldwell glanced back and forth between them, as if searching for the smallest escape from this embarrassing predicament. Finally, he gestured for the security guards to step back. I'll let you continue with your flight. Apologies, but the words rang hollow, forced, lacking any sincerity. The Jackson family watched as Caldwell turned on his heel, muttering to the guards and hastily walking toward a nearby hangar. They exchanged glances, half anger, half relief. Chloe, who had been silent all this time, finally let out a shuddering breath. Dad, I was scared. Nathan placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder, comforting her. It's over, sweetheart. Let's get inside. As the Jackson family ascended the jet staircase, each step seemed heavier, weighed down by the lingering sting of the insult. They hadn't yet realized just how far-reaching the consequences of this confrontation would be. Before long, both the airline industry and social media would be abuzz with the story of a CEO who tried to expel the very family who owned the jet. And justice, as usual, had already charted its course. Nathan settled into the luxurious cream leather seat, his heart still pounding from the anger that hadn't yet subsided. Evelyn sat across from him, her elegant demeanor now mixed with pain and resolve. Ethan sank onto the sofa near the window, arms crossed, still seething with fury. Chloe, biting her lip, fiddled with the brand-new gold-trimmed seatbelt, her eyes darting nervously between her parents. Captain Harper walked over, his polished shoes sinking into the thick silk carpet. Mr. Jackson, I'm so sorry for what just happened. I never expected him to. Nathan raised his hand, cutting him off. It's not your fault, Captain. You did what you needed to do. Harper nodded, his expression briefly softening. We're ready for takeoff at any time. The flight plan to San Francisco has been filed. We'll avoid the storm system along the coast. Thank you, Harper, Evelyn said, offering a tired smile. We appreciate your professionalism. He nodded before stepping away to complete his pre-flight checks with the co-pilot. A new flight attendant, slightly nervous, brought drinks for the family. Evelyn drifted into her thoughts, unable to shake the arrogant gaze of Caldwell and the way he had treated them like intruders, his dismissive tone seeping into her heart. The simmering anger reignited within her chest. How many years, she whispered as if to herself, and it's still never easy. Nathan looked at her, his gaze full of understanding. We've worked so hard to build a life of respect and dignity, yet in one moment, it all seems meaningless because of someone else's prejudice. Ethan spoke up, his voice tight. Dad, why didn't you yell at him from the start? You let him insult us until Captain Harper stepped in. Nathan sighed, rubbing his nose. We tried, son. But people like him don't listen until they're forced to. Did you see how he cut me off? Ethan glared out the window, still boiling with anger. He's a racist. Chloe looked up, anxiety written on her face. What's going to happen now, Mom? Evelyn spoke gently. We're going to stick to our plans, sweetheart. We'll fly to San Francisco, finish our charity work with the university, then head home. Chloe nodded, half reassured but still uneasy, resting her head on her mother's shoulder. Evelyn stroked her daughter's hair. Everything will be fine. Before long, the engines roared to life, and the plane began rolling down the runway. Light rain began to fall, distant thunder rumbling, reflecting the chaos that had just unfolded. As the plane ascended through the gray clouds, the warm light of the cabin stood in stark contrast to the dark atmosphere below. Normally, the Jacksons would have been celebrating their newly upgraded jet, a symbol of their success in business and philanthropy, but today all joy was overshadowed by the unsettling events on the ground. In the plush seats, thoughts of injustice and disappointment threatened to drag the family's spirits down. "40 minutes after takeoff, Evelyn's phone buzzed in the quiet of the cabin. A famous aviation blogger, known for tracking the private jets of the elite, had just uploaded a short video. The blurry footage, filmed by a ground crew member at Van Nuys, captured the tense standoff. Jet engine noise drowned out much of the sound, but Caldwell's sharp voice still cut through, shouting at the Jacksons to leave the plane. The video then abruptly cut to his stunned, pale face when he realized the Gulfstream G700 belonged to them. In less than an hour, the video had been retweeted thousands of times with hashtags like #KnowYourPlace, #JetJustice, and #CaldwellCrash spreading like wildfire across social media. The virtual world exploded with comments about prejudice, arrogance, and the undeniable disrespect of the CEO of Horizon Airways. Ethan, seeing the video on his mother's phone, whistled quietly. Wow, looks like the whole world knows now. Chloe frowned at the static from the clip, her voice anxious. Everyone's going to talk about us a lot, right? Nathan nodded slowly, his eyes glued to his phone as messages from friends and business partners poured in, all offering support. Yes, sweetheart, he said softly, his voice tinged with sadness. Evelyn scrolled through the comments. A wave of solidarity was rising from all corners of the internet, condemning Caldwell's actions, but there were still trolls lurking with racist comments and people twisting the narrative. She turned off the screen, not wanting to get sucked into the dark pit of negativity. Nathan placed a hand on hers. Let's focus on the positive. So many people are standing up for what's right. Don't let the darkness cloud the light. Evelyn forced a tired smile, her heart still heavy. The cabin lights dimmed as the flight attendants began serving lunch. Fresh seafood for the adults, fried chicken and fries for the kids, as per Chloe's request. But the usual cheerful atmosphere of their family trips was replaced by a suffocating silence. As the plane neared San Francisco, the storm clouds began to clear, revealing the golden coastline beneath the sunlight. In that moment, Evelyn reminded herself they wouldn't let Caldwell's contempt define them or ruin this day. They had important commitments at Stanford University, a meeting to discuss scholarships for underprivileged students. That was the cause that deserved their full attention. But little did they know, Richard Caldwell's day was just beginning to unravel. He might have seen them as intruders, but the video spreading like wildfire was telling a different story to the world, and Horizon Airways board would soon demand an explanation for this humiliating fall. The plane landed at San Francisco International Airport, and the Jackson family was greeted by a private car arranged by the Stanford board. The characteristic warmth of California hit them as they stepped onto the tarmac, but the cool sea breeze brought some comfort. Their driver, a polite man named Marcus, quickly helped with the luggage. Once they were settled into the cool leather seats of the car, Ethan checked the latest updates on his phone. Dad, he turned the screen toward Nathan, the video's got over 1 million views now. Nathan and Evelyn exchanged a concerned glance. The last thing they wanted was to become the focal point of a racial scandal. But the footage was too vivid, too shocking for the public to ignore. Nathan placed a hand on his chest, trying to suppress the rising unease. At the luxurious Fairmont San Francisco hotel lobby, staff recognized the Jacksons immediately and escorted them to a private lounge to complete the check-in process. A few reporters lingered in the distance, cameras lowered but lenses still aimed at them, waiting for the perfect shot. Clearly, the story had already made its way to mainstream media. The family ignored them and swiftly entered the private elevator to their suite. Only once they were settled into the spacious living room with panoramic views of the San Francisco skyline did Evelyn collapse into a chair, exhaling wearily. Well, there goes our peaceful weekend. Nathan walked over and gently massaged her shoulder. Everything will be fine. We'll get through this. Let's focus on the event tonight at Stanford. Don't let this overshadow what we've worked for. Ethan and Chloe explored the suite, excited by the fresh fruit, chocolates, and a welcome bouquet from the hotel. Their excitement lifted the mood a bit. We've got a few hours before the scholarship gala, Nathan said, glancing at his watch. Everyone rest up and then we'll head to campus. Evelyn nodded, but her mind was already racing. If the media caught wind, tonight's charity event could be overshadowed by the drama. An hour later, as she adjusted her hair in front of the mirror, her phone buzzed. A strange number, probably a reporter. She hesitated, then let it go to voicemail. A message appeared right after. This is Priya from CNN. I'd like to get a comment on your family's confrontation with Richard Caldwell. Evelyn took a deep breath, set the phone down, and walked over to Nathan, who was adjusting his tie. He raised an eyebrow. A reporter? She nodded, shaking her head slightly. He grimaced. We need a plan. The last thing we want is to add fuel to the fire or look like we're blowing this out of proportion. Evelyn sighed. We could release a brief statement, clarifying the truth that we were on our own plane, and he acted inappropriately. Nathan nodded. Okay, after the event tonight. Let's focus on helping the kids at Stanford. They stepped into the elevator to head back down to the lobby, where a university contact was waiting. The woman introduced herself as Dr. Olivia Bennett, a sociology professor at Stanford, dressed in an elegant blue suit, warmly greeting them. "It's an honor to have you here, Mr. and Mrs. Jackson. I admire your scholarship initiative. Our entire board is excited." The short but scenic drive through campus was beautiful, palm trees casting long shadows under the golden sunset. There was a buzz in the air as they approached the Stanford auditorium. Students in formal attire chatted excitedly, and professors and local businesspeople whispered and networked. Inside the auditorium, the stage was decorated with banners featuring the Jackson Foundation logo beside the Stanford crest. Evelyn noticed a few cameras in the back, probably university media or local news covering the charity event. When they entered, the room fell silent before erupting into applause. Evelyn's cheeks flushed with gratitude. At least for this moment, the negative cloud lifted. After interacting with excited students receiving scholarships and shaking hands with the university president, the Jackson family sat down in the honored guest seats on stage. Dr. Bennett introduced them, praising their generosity and vision for funding higher education. Nathan stood up, his tall frame exuding dignity. "Thank you all for the warm welcome," he began, his voice deep and resonant. "My wife and I believe that education is the foundation of progress. No one should be held back by financial barriers. Through this scholarship program, we hope to empower creative minds to shape our future." The audience responded with applause. Evelyn followed, her voice full of emotion as she shared their philanthropic journey, her face glowing as she spoke of the resilient power of underprivileged communities. "We want to invest in your potential, the potential to innovate, lead and uplift others," she concluded. A standing ovation followed. The family exchanged relieved smiles, their hearts warm with pride. In that hour of happiness, the confrontation with Caldwell seemed distant, overshadowed by positivity and unity. But as they stepped off the stage and into the dimly lit hallway behind, that comfort shattered. An event coordinator hurried toward them, her face filled with concern. "I'm so sorry," she said, "but reporters from CNN and NBC are here, requesting interviews about what happened at Van Nuys." A wave of disappointment washed over Evelyn. She glanced at Nathan, who shook his head. They had hoped to keep the event focused on the scholarship. "Is there a back exit?" Nathan asked quietly. The coordinator nodded. "Yes, I can take you there if you'd prefer not to speak publicly right now." Evelyn bit her lip, torn. One brief comment could quash the speculation, but any words could fuel the media frenzy. The scholarship program deserved to shine, not be overshadowed by a scandal. In the end, they chose to leave quietly. Ethan and Chloe followed, their eyes a mix of curiosity and disappointment. They slipped out through the back exit, climbed into the waiting car, and the engine hummed as it quietly left the campus, leaving the bustling auditorium behind. Ethan leaned back from the back seat. "Mom, Dad, maybe we should do an interview, clear everything up." Nathan pursed his lips, opening a message chain with their PR manager, Linda Chong. "Let's talk to Linda first." Evelyn nodded, gazing out at the sparkling San Francisco skyline, city lights glittering like diamonds against the black sky. She wished this trip was solely about hope and charity, an opportunity to honor their commitment to the community. But just one run-in with Caldwell had cast an unwanted shadow. Before heading to their hotel, the family opted for a late dinner at a discreet restaurant, savoring exquisite seafood and tropical salads, trying to hold on to a semblance of normalcy. But their phones buzzed non-stop. The scandal was spreading, drowning out their philanthropic mission. As she sipped on juice and nibbled on the last piece of lemon cake, Evelyn looked at each member of her family. She saw resilience in them, a determination not to let hatred or prejudice drive their path. She squeezed Nathan's hand under the table. He squeezed back, a silent promise that they would face adversity as they always had. By the next morning, the scandal reached a boiling point. Major networks were replaying the grainy footage from the tarmac, each channel adding their own perspective. Social media was flooded with comments about race, privilege, and corporate responsibility. Hashtags #CO collapse and #Gulfstream Truth dominated Twitter. At dawn, Linda Chong caught an early flight to San Francisco and arrived at the hotel suite with sharp eyes and impeccable style. "I've got news," she declared, setting her tablet down on the coffee table. The Jackson family gathered around, still tired from their short night's sleep. Linda quickly skimmed through the headlines. A spokesperson from Horizon Airways says Caldwell is deeply sorry for the misunderstanding and is seeking to make amends. But the board is furious. They've called an emergency meeting to discuss disciplinary actions or possibly force him to resign. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Wait, are they actually going to fire him?" Linda nodded, her lips pressed together. He's become a liability. Horizon just launched the Fly with Honor campaign. Ironically, this scandal has completely destroyed that image. The board won't forgive him. Chloe fiddled with her phone, reading messages from friends about the viral video. Good, she muttered. He deserves it. Evelyn stroked her daughter's hair, gently advising, justice may come, but we shouldn't rejoice when someone falls. Just sad that it had to come to this. Linda sat down. Now the press wants to hear from you. They're surrounding the hotel, the airport, everywhere. I suggest issuing a brief statement. Focus on the facts, his inappropriate behavior, and your determination to keep your charity work at the forefront. Stay calm, professional, and dignified. Nathan crossed his arms and nodded. Sounds reasonable. We don't want to come across as enemies, but we can't stay silent. Silence would seem like we're accepting or ignoring the issue. Linda smiled brightly. Exactly. We can also highlight the scholarship program in the statement, showing that you remain committed to your mission despite this darkness. Bottom line, we control the narrative. The Jackson family nodded in agreement, and over the next hour, Linda carefully crafted a statement. Nathan, Evelyn, Ethan, and Chloe all contributed their thoughts, ensuring it expressed both their disappointment in Caldwell's behavior and their commitment to supporting the community. By noon, in a discreet room at the Fairmont Hotel, Linda held a brief press conference, inviting a select group of journalists. She stood tall, her voice calm but heavy with intent, reading the statement on behalf of the Jackson family. We, the Jackson family, are deeply saddened by the recent events with Mr. Richard Caldwell at Van Nuys Airport. We were treated with harshness and disrespect as we prepared to board our own private jet. We believe no family or individual should be subjected to prejudice or judgment based on appearance. However, we want to emphasize that our focus remains on our charitable efforts, including the newly launched scholarship program at Stanford University. We hope this unfortunate incident sparks necessary dialogue and positive change in the aviation industry. We bear no personal ill will toward Mr. Caldwell and trust that Horizon Airways will address the matter appropriately. The statement was firm yet composed, neither inflammatory nor dismissive yet powerful. The reporters clamored for further answers, but Linda swiftly closed the session, reiterating the family's position. That evening, the Jackson family decided to attend a charity art auction at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, SFMOMA, where local artists donated works to support community programs. Typically, they enjoyed admiring vibrant creations, supporting new talent, but tonight, every eye seemed to be on them. Cameras flashed as they stepped out of the crowd, whispers rippling like an undercurrent. In a corner of the museum, Evelyn paused in front of a vibrant painting depicting the western flora. Swirls of green, yellow, and red danced across the canvas. She was captivated, momentarily escaping the chaos, until a tall figure approached. A man with salt and pepper hair, wearing a name tag that read Victor Alvarez, art collector and philanthropist, stepped forward. Mrs. Jackson, sorry to interrupt, he said warmly. I just wanted to express my admiration for how you handled the mess with Caldwell. Being disrespected on your own property must have been difficult. Evelyn smiled politely. Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. We're trying to stay focused on the positive. He nodded. Exactly. In fact, a few people in the San Francisco charity community are interested in partnering with you. Your scholarship program could expand to include community colleges and vocational programs. I think there's huge potential. Evelyn's eyes brightened. Amid the adversity, opportunity still bloomed. I'd love to hear more, she said, exchanging business cards. Even though the cloud from Van Nuys still hung over them, rays of hope still shone through. Across the hall, Nathan sipped his sparkling water watching the kids. Ethan was engrossed in the modern sculptures, while Chloe was mesmerized by a digital light display. His heart warmed. No matter how chaotic the world outside, the bond of their family remained as solid as ever. The crowd quieted as the MC announced the auction would begin. Everyone gathered in the central hall, and the Jackson family chose seats near the front. The air was electric as the first piece was brought on stage. By the time the third piece, a stunning mosaic made from recycled materials, was announced, Nathan's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, a message from Linda Chong. Urgent, Caldwell's PR just contacted. He wants to meet with you. His heart raced. He passed the message to Evelyn, who raised an eyebrow. What now? The second message arrived immediately after. He wants to meet at a neutral location, says he wants to apologize in person. Evelyn's face became unreadable, her feelings a mix of anger, empathy, and caution. It could be both, genuine apology or just a PR move to salvage his reputation, Nathan sighed. Should we meet him? Evelyn paused. If we agree it has to be after we get home. We've had enough of this here. Nathan nodded, typing a response. We're in San Francisco. We can discuss meeting when we return to New York. No promises. He put the phone away, trying to focus on the auction, but his mind was racing. Was Caldwell truly remorseful, or was this a PR stunt to save his career? The mosaic sold for a huge price, the audience clapping enthusiastically, but Nathan barely paid attention. When the auction ended, the family congratulated the organizers and quietly left. The warm, humid San Francisco night enveloped them like a blanket, and the car waited to take them back to the hotel, city lights becoming blurred streaks in the darkness. The family was lost in thought. Even Chloe, usually chatty, silently gazed out the window. Ethan broke the silence. Do you think we'll meet Caldwell? Nathan and Evelyn exchanged a glance. Maybe, Nathan replied. He wants to apologize. Ethan frowned. He should, but I don't trust him. Evelyn looked at her son through the rearview mirror. I understand, sweetheart. We'll be careful. By the time they arrived at the hotel, the adrenaline had worn off, and they drifted into fitful sleep. No one knew what the meeting with Caldwell would bring. Would it extinguish the fire or fan it further? But one thing was clear. This story was far from over. Caldwell was powerful, well-connected, and cornered. Desperate people often make unpredictable moves. The next morning, the Jackson family boarded the Gulfstream G700 at San Francisco International Airport. The flight back to New York was subdued. Captain Harper announced the weather conditions, skillfully avoiding any mention of the growing scandal. He was a professional, focused solely on getting them home safely. During the flight, Evelyn gazed out the window, the coastline below blurred like a watercolor painting. White clouds drifted lazily, a serene contrast to the storm within her. She wrestled with her justified anger at Caldwell's actions and her inherent compassion. People could change, but could she forgive so easily? Nathan sat beside her, typing away on his laptop, replying to work emails, occasionally glancing at her and giving her hand a gentle squeeze, offering silent support. Ethan and Chloe, with headphones on, watched a movie, their minds relaxed. When the flight attendants announced their approach to Van Nuys Airport, Evelyn's stomach tightened. She couldn't erase the humiliating moment when Caldwell had thrown coffee at Nathan on the very tarmac they were about to land on. But now they were safely aboard their own plane, their family intact. They stepped off and no one rushed toward them to stop them as they had before. Instead, ground staff bowed respectfully, and the VIP terminal attendants greeted them with polite smiles, as if the airport itself was silently acknowledging the injustice they had once suffered. Linda Chong was waiting at the gate, phone in hand, her face slightly tense. Welcome back, she said, offering a sympathetic smile. Any issues with the flight? Nathan shook his head. Smooth, thankfully. Good, Linda replied, leading them to the waiting SUV. Caldwell's office contacted again. Horizon Airways board is meeting tomorrow. They're asking if you'd be willing to accept his apology in person right after. A heavy silence filled the vehicle. Evelyn folded her arms, placing them on her lap. What do you think, Linda? Good or bad? Linda hesitated. It could be good for the image of both sides, but only if he's sincere. Otherwise, it could backfire and look like a cheap PR stunt. Chloe, eavesdropping, chimed in. Why not make him apologize in front of the ground staff who he embarrassed us in front of? Linda chuckled lightly. Good idea, but a bit vengeful. We want to show dignity while remaining firm. Nathan gazed out the window, the airport fading behind them. Let him speak, he said slowly. But on our terms, neutral location, no cameras unless we agree. I'm not going to let this turn into a PR tool. Linda nodded, taking notes on her phone. Got it? I'll relay those terms. The decision was made. Tomorrow they would face Richard Caldwell in Manhattan. A new confrontation was set, though they had yet to understand the twists of fate waiting for them. The Jackson family chose a luxurious, discreet lounge in Midtown Manhattan as their meeting spot. The space exuded sophisticated opulence. Comfortable neutral-toned armchairs, a glittering chandelier casting warm light, and floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the Manhattan skyline at night. Nathan arrived early with Evelyn, Linda, and 2 plainclothes security guards. Ethan and Chloe stayed at home with a family friend. This was an adults-only conversation that needed privacy. A female attendant guided them to a secluded booth, the gentle strains of jazz playing softly overhead. Evelyn took a sip of ice water, trying to calm the rising tension inside her. 15 minutes later, Richard Caldwell appeared at the entrance. He walked in alone, wearing a well-tailored navy blue suit, but his demeanor was strikingly different. Tense, hesitant, stripped of the arrogance he had flaunted at Van Nuys. His eyes scanned the lounge until they landed on the Jackson family. Linda stood to greet him professionally, introducing him to the security team to ensure safety. Caldwell extended his hand toward Nathan, hesitating before shaking it. Evelyn sat still, her posture calm yet alert. Once everyone was seated, Caldwell cleared his throat, his voice trembling. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me," he said, his voice faltering. Nathan nodded, not in a rush to respond. "We want to hear what you have to say." Caldwell swallowed hard, fiddling with the cuff of his crisp white shirt. I want to express my deepest apologies for my actions at Van Nuys. I was disrespectful, arrogant, and frankly racist. The weight of the words hung in the air like lead. I judged you based on my own prejudices, something that is unforgivable. A heavy silence followed. Evelyn studied him, searching for sincerity. Caldwell continued, his voice lowering. "That day, I was under immense pressure. Horizon Airways was about to close a deal to expand our private jet fleet. I thought you were standing in our way, and I made the terrible mistake of jumping to conclusions." Nathan responded, his tone calm but sharp. "Everyone faces pressure, but not everyone chooses to respond with hostility and prejudice." Caldwell nodded, his face turning red. "You're right. There's no excuse. I'm truly sorry, and I'm sorry for what your family has endured, the widespread attention, the cruel comments. I deeply regret it." Evelyn leaned forward, arms crossed. "This has upended our lives in ways you can't imagine. Our charitable work has been overshadowed by this scandal. We've received negative feedback, some even blaming us for ruining your career. It's put a lot of stress on the kids." A flash of guilt appeared on Caldwell's face. "I understand," he exhaled, his shoulders slumping. "The Horizon board is deciding my fate today. I suspect they'll either force me to resign or demote me heavily. Either way, I wanted to meet with you in person to truly apologize, not as a performance. I owe you that." Silence enveloped the room. Outside the lounge window, the Manhattan skyline glittered. Linda observed the moment, ready to intervene if necessary. Caldwell continued, his voice tense. "If there's anything I can do to make amends, donate to your cause, offer direct compensation, I'm willing. If you want a public apology, I'll do that. I just want you to know I am genuinely remorseful." Nathan and Evelyn exchanged a glance. Evelyn spoke softly, "We appreciate your words. We believe in giving people a chance to make things right, but trust has to be built through actions, not just words." Caldwell nodded, his eyes a mix of relief and sadness. "I understand. If there's a way forward, I'll do everything I can to walk it." Linda, sensing the pause, spoke up. "Mr. Caldwell, perhaps we can arrange an official apology and address the issue of racial bias in the aviation industry. The Jackson Foundation is exploring diversity and inclusion initiatives. Your involvement, if genuine, could help." Caldwell's eyes brightened slightly. "Yes, of course. I have experience in aviation management, not philanthropy, but I'm willing to learn and contribute." Nathan leaned back in his chair, considering. "All right, we'll consider it. But for now, let's just say we accept your apology. We don't forgive what happened, but holding on to bitterness won't help anyone." Evelyn nodded, her eyes filled with cautious empathy. "Yes, we accept your apology. We hope you continue to reflect. True change starts from within." Caldwell relaxed, the tension easing. "Thank you. I can't express how grateful I am. I promise I'll strive to live up to this forgiveness." A profound silence filled the room, as if everyone recognized the significance of the moment. The prejudice that sparked this mess couldn't be erased with just an apology, but perhaps this was the first step toward awareness and change. Linda stood, thanking Caldwell. Everyone stood up, a somewhat awkward handshake followed, Nathan with Caldwell, and then Evelyn nodding politely. The Jackson family left with Linda and their security, leaving Caldwell sitting alone in the booth, his face deep in thought. Outside, the cool breeze swept through Midtown, the noise of traffic and hurried pedestrians echoing. No one knew the moral drama that had just unfolded in the lounge. The Jackson family felt a weight lift, though the day had left them with much to ponder. But fate still had one final twist in store. As they stepped onto the sidewalk, Linda's phone buzzed. She answered, walking a few steps away, her voice dropping to shocked whispers. She hung up, her eyes wide. That was a tip from Horizon. The board just decided to fire Richard Caldwell as CEO, effective immediately. Nathan and Evelyn both gasped. Did they say who will replace him? Nathan asked. Linda shrugged. Not yet. I just know his position is gone. After the scandal, stock prices plummeted, and major investors are demanding accountability. Caldwell is finished. Evelyn looked down the street, the crowds of New Yorkers passing by, each person lost in their own world. The sudden news left her stunned. She thought of Caldwell sitting alone in the lounge, perhaps soon to receive that fateful call. A brief moment of sympathy welled up, only to be erased by memories of his cruelty. People were complicated, she told herself. Inside the SUV, a strange silence enveloped the Jackson family. They had faced discrimination head-on, stood tall, and witnessed the downfall of a powerful man whose arrogance had clouded his judgment. Evelyn squeezed Nathan's hand, her eyes searching his. Her voice trembled softly. Do you think we did the right thing by listening to him? Nathan sighed, leaning back in the seat, his voice warm. I think so. Holding on to anger only hurts us. We gave him the chance to apologize, the rest is up to him. Linda, sitting in the front seat, turned back slightly. This could open up a new door for the Jackson Foundation. The press is watching. If we push for more diversity in aviation, scholarships for young minority pilots, we could really make a difference. A faint smile appeared on Evelyn's face. I like that idea. Let's make it happen. In that moment of quiet reflection, the family felt the first steps of closure taking shape. Back at their Upper West Side townhouse, Ethan and Chloe ran out to greet them. Chloe jumped into Evelyn's arms, while Ethan stood nearby, trying to act indifferent. So, how did it go? He asked. Nathan smiled tiredly, leading the family into the living room. He apologized, then got fired. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Wow, so it's over now? Chloe curled up beside Evelyn on the sofa. Him apologizing is good, right? Even if he lost his job. Evelyn stroked her daughter's hair. Yes, sweetie. Learning from mistakes is important, but sometimes the consequences are harsh. Everyone has to face them. That evening, the family gathered for a simple dinner, pasta, garlic bread, and salad, a peaceful return after all the drama. The dining table buzzed with talk about school projects, Ethan's new app development, and Chloe's upcoming soccer game. When the kids went to bed, Evelyn and Nathan lingered in the living room, the soft jazz filling the space. She leaned against him on the sofa, sipping chamomile tea. I feel lighter, she confessed. Nathan kissed her forehead. Me too. It's all over now, or at least the worst part of it. She set the cup down, turning to him. What do you think of Linda's idea? A diversity initiative in aviation, sponsoring training for minority young pilots, partnering with private jet companies to create internships. Nathan's eyes lit up. Brilliant. We could name it after your father. He was the first to teach you the value of giving back, right? Evelyn's smile radiated. Yes, he'd be so proud. Let's do it. In that quiet moment, a seed for a legacy was sown, a direct response to the prejudice they had faced, paving the way for a more inclusive future in aviation and beyond. Meanwhile, in a luxurious penthouse across the city, Richard Caldwell packed up his executive office. The board's decision came swiftly like a knife. He had 1 week to leave. He stood before the glass wall, looking down at the city lights, his shoulders heavy. Though bitterness simmered in his chest, he recalled the sincere acceptance in the Jackson family's eyes. There was an opportunity to make amends, to grow, if he chose to pursue it. Justice had struck, yes, but perhaps it also awakened an opportunity for real change. The next step was his. For the Jackson family, it was moving forward with their charity mission, turning adversity into opportunity for others. For Caldwell, it was confronting his own biases, acknowledging that power and privilege could disappear in an instant, and that respect had to be earned, not demanded. The scandal would eventually fade from the headlines, but the lessons would silently reshape the lives of everyone involved. And that was the true power of facing the storm, not avoiding it but standing firm. 2 months later, the Jackson Foundation held a press conference at LaGuardia International Airport, in partnership with Gulfstream Aerospace, to announce the Wings of Unity program. Through scholarships and mentoring, this initiative aimed to bring minorities and women into the aviation industry. Evelyn stood on the podium, her voice resonating in the small hangar where journalists and students had gathered. When faced with prejudice, we could have backed down. But instead, we chose to lift others, to ensure they have a way into the sky, a future without limits. The applause was deafening, camera flashes popped like lightning. Nathan stepped up beside her, smiling proudly. We believe the best way to respond to hatred or misunderstanding is with positive action. Today, we're opening the door for future pilots, engineers, and aviation professionals from all walks of life. After the event, The family took pictures with the group of excited teenagers eager to apply for the new scholarships. The atmosphere in the hangar was filled with hope. Above, a jet soared through the deep blue sky, leaving a white trail behind, an impeccable symbol of limitless possibility. In a hidden corner, Richard Caldwell silently watched from the crowd. He had arrived unannounced, dressed casually, standing alone. He listened intently to the Jackson family's speech, his shoulders weighed down, his face thoughtful. When the ceremony ended, he quietly slipped away without fanfare. Had he announced himself, they might have invited him to speak, but he wasn't ready, not yet. On the way to his car, he sent a message to Linda Chong. "Congratulations on the launch. Let me know if I can be of any help." A small step, but a step nonetheless. From the chaos on the tarmac to the moment of bridging the social divide, the Jackson family's journey proved that adversity could plant the seeds of victory, if faced with courage and grace. The sky, once tainted by prejudice, now carried the promise of unity, calling everyone to soar higher. Thank you for accompanying us through this emotional journey, about respect, redemption, and resilience in the face of blatant prejudice. The Jackson family rose, transforming a humiliating moment into a movement for opportunity, diversity, and inclusion in aviation and beyond. We witnessed how an act of arrogance can topple the powerful, reminding us that no one stands above responsibility. Yet even in the aftermath, there is space for remorse, forgiveness, and personal growth. If this story inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. By supporting this positive content, you help spread awareness and optimism. Together, let's continue reaching for new heights, because every dream deserves to take flight.